Good morning, students. In today's class, we will see the review of previous class topics, that is the antenna efficiency, antenna temperature, G by T ratio, Friis transmission equation, and the introductions of microwave. And in today's class, we will cover a new topic named impedance matching and its types. So in the previous class we saw what is the antenna efficiency. We saw that the antenna efficiency depends on the two main losses such as the I square R loss and the reflection loss. So I square R loss has a combination of conduction loss and the dielectric loss. We saw the diagrammatic representation of the same. So in the diagram we can see the reflection loss is represented by this reflection coefficient, and the conduction loss is represented by IC. The dielectric loss is represented by ID. We saw the expression for the antenna efficiency in terms of reflection coefficient. We also saw the equation or the formula of voltage standing wave ratio in terms of reflection coefficient, which is 1 plus magnitude of reflection coefficient divided by 1 minus magnitude of reflection coefficient. Next we saw the formula and definition of antenna temperature represented by TA in terms of the gain G, which is a function of theta and phi. Then we saw the diagrammatic representation for the calculation of antenna temperature, where we have different types of temperatures represented by TR, which is the receiver temperature, TP, the physical temperature of the antenna, T0, which is the temperature of the transmission line of length L. And we also know that the transmission line is assumed to have a constant or a uniform attenuation represented by alpha. So we saw the expression for the antenna temperature in terms of the above said parameters. Then we moved on to G by T ratio, which is the antenna gain to noise temperature, which is one of the main figure of merit of any satellite system. And here the noise temperature, the gain indicates the gain of the receiving antenna. Then we saw what is the Friis transmission equation. This basically gives a relationship between the transmitted power and the received power in any wireless communication system. So this is a diagrammatic setup for calculating the Friis transmission equation, where we assume that the transmitting antenna and the receiving antennas are directional, omnidirectional and lossless antenna, and they are kept at a distance r. And we also assume that the receiver is kept in the far field region of the transmitting antenna. So we saw the derivation of the same. So the Friis transmission equation is given by this expression, which is PR equal to PT GT GR lambda square by 4 pi R the whole square. So this is considered as one of the fundamental equations in antenna theory, which is going to relate the free space path loss antenna gains, that is GT and GR, the gains of the transmitting and the receiving antenna, along with the wavelengths of the received and the transmitted powers represented by lambda. So this is another representation of the same Friis transmission equation, which is giving the ratio of the received power and the transmitted power. PR by PT is equal to lambda by 4 pi R the whole square GT GR. So this is the same formula rewritten to find the ratios of the powers. where we have the constant lambda by 4 pi r the whole square to be named as space loss factor. So next we moved on with the microwaves. So we saw in introduction we saw that the microwave frequency ranges from 1 gigahertz to 3 gigahertz, and we also saw that it is classified into many subbands. It basically requires an unobstructed view of the sender to successfully receive the microwaves. So wherever we have large areas to be covered and there is no obstacle in the path, we always use the microwave communication. So this is the frequency bands found in ITU radio regulations, which is ranging from very low frequency to extremely high frequency. So in this we saw that the last three categories, ultra high frequency, super high frequency and extremely high frequency combines to form the microwave frequency range. So this chart gives an idea or gives the classification or subband of the microwave frequency, which are L, S, C, X, KU, K, KA, V and W, ranging from 1 to 110 gigahertz. So I mentioned you that out of all these frequency, X band is important for the reason that this X band frequency, which is ranging from 8 to 12 gigahertz, is used in the optical and the microwave laboratory, which we will be using it. So this is prefix, factors and symbols. So most of them you are already familiar with, and specifically for microwave frequency range we will be using giga prefix, which is 10 power 9, represented by the symbol capital G. We saw the advantage of the microwaves, that since it is having a higher frequency, it transfers more data with increased bandwidth and higher speed, and since the frequency is very large, the wavelength lambda is going to be very small, so it is going to use only smaller antennas. And the third advantage is smaller antennas is going to produce more focused beam, which is very difficult to intercept. Next we saw the disadvantages of microwaves, that is they require no obstacle to be present in the transmission path, that is it requires line of sight path, and the cost of implementing the communication infrastructure is very high, and microwaves are susceptible to rain, snow and EMI, that is electromagnetic interference. Applications. So there are numerous applications where I have listed a few of applications, which is carrier waves in satellite communication. It is used in cellular communication, Bluetooth, WiMAX, WLAN, that is wireless local area network, and GPS, which is global positioning system. Then we saw the three basic modes of propagation in microwave, which is line of sight propagation, sky wave propagation and the ground wave propagation, also called as ground reflected path. Finally we saw the microwave signal attenuation. Attenuation means the signal amplitude is going to reduce, and we saw the four reasons for the signal attenuation, namely the reflection, refraction, scattering and absorption. So from the diagram you can see attenuated signal will have lesser amplitude. There is no change in the frequency, only the amplitude of the signal is going to be lesser due to any one of these mentioned parameters. So now we will proceed on with today's class. So the first topic that we are going to see is impedance matching. So again, this is not a new topic for you. Impedance matching we have already come across in electric circuits, transmission lines and waveguides. So you will refresh what is impedance matching. So the power delivered to the variable load RL is calculated by defining the output voltage. So the output voltage for this diagram is given by Vout is equal to Vs into RL by Rs plus RL. Then the power delivered into the RL is given by, we know the formula of power, Pout is equal to Vout the whole square divided by RL. So substituting the expression for Vout that we saw in the previous slide, that is R by RL plus Rs the whole square, we get the expression for Pout as RL divided by RL plus Rs the whole square, Vs the whole square. So if we plot the output power versus the load resistor RL, we will be getting this plot, from where you can see that as the value of RL increases, the output power is slowly increasing. At this point where RL is equal to Rs, that is when the load resistance is equal to the source resistance, we have got the maximum power. As the load resistor value increases beyond the value of the source resistance, what is happening? The output power is slowly decreasing. So this condition, RL equal to Rs, is required for maximum power transfer between the source and the load. So if the load is going to be complex, then in such case we will be using conjugate matched loads. In case of resistive terminations, the source resistance must be equal to the load resistance for maximum power transfer. Higher load resistance lead to higher voltage but low current across the load. Lower resistance load results in high current but low voltage. So resistive terminations requires RL to be equal to Rs, and complex load requires the conjugate matched load, that is source has to be complex conjugate matched to the load. So for a perfect match, so what is perfect match? When the reflection coefficient is 0, we call the matching as perfect match. So perfect match can be achieved at selected single frequency by performing the following two tasks. First task is the imaginary part of the load must be negated or tuned out. The second one is the real parts must be equal. So maximum power transfer, the source ZS with a series reactive component of plus Jx, which is an inductor, is driving its complex conjugate load impedance consisting of a minus Jx reactance, that is a capacitor, in series with RL as given in the diagram here. The plus Xj component of the source and the minus Xj component of the load are in series, and thus they cancel each other, leaving Rs equal to RL, which are equal by definition. So since Rs and RL are equal, maximum power is transferred between the load and the source. So now we will move on to the types of impedance matching network. So there are two types of networks available for performing impedance matching. So first category that we are going to discuss is L network, which is also called as two-element network. That means, so we have the source here, we have the source impedance ZS, and we have the load impedance ZL. Between the load and the source, we are connecting a matching network, which is going to perform the function of matching between ZS and ZL, which are different values. So L type network here indicates we are going to connect two different elements in the form of L. Can you see this L and C is forming an L, and this also is forming an L. This is again forming an L, and this is again forming a L. So impedance matching network in the form of L we call as L-type network. And why it is called as two element? That L shape is formed by using two elements. What are the two elements used here? L and C. So when you use two elements L and C, they can be connected in four different forms. So the first two forms will give you a low pass structure, and the next two forms give you the high pass structure. That is, when you connect a series L followed by a shunt C, it acts as low pass. Similarly, when you connect a shunt C followed by a series L, again it acts as a low pass structure. Instead of a series L, if you go for a series C followed by a shunt L, it forms a high pass structure. And a shunt L followed by a series C forms again a high pass structure. So these are the four types of two element network called as L network impedance matching which are available. So these are the design equations that are used for impedance matching. So Q we know it is the quality factor. Qs is equal to Qp is equal to square root of Rp by Rs minus 1. Qs is equal to Xs divided by Rs. That is, any complex impedance Zs is represented by Rs plus or minus Xs, right? So the ratio of the imaginary part to its real part is called as quality factor. And the inverse of it, that is the ratio, if the impedance is going to be parallel, that is if it is Zp instead of Zs, S here indicates series element and P here indicates the shunt element or the parallel element. So if the element is going to be a shunt element, then the quality factor is given by the real part, ratio of the real part to its imaginary part. So if it is a series element, it is the ratio of its imaginary part to the real part. So Qs is equal to Q of the series leg and Qp is the Q of the shunt leg, where Q is the quality factor and Rp is the shunt resistance, Xp is the shunt reactance, Rs is the series resistance and Xs is the series reactance. So the quantities Xp and Xs may be either capacitive or inductive reactance, but each must be of opposite type. So if Xp is capacitive, then Xs has to be inductive or vice versa. So now let us see a problem how to design a matching network. So the question here is, design a circuit to match a 100 ohms source to a 1000 ohms load at a frequency of 100 megahertz. Assume that a DC voltage must also be transferred from the source to the load. So we saw that we have four different categories of L-type network that is possible. Now since we need a DC path between the source and the load, we have an inductor path or an inductor in series next to the source followed by a shunt capacitor. So let us see how to design this impedance matching network. Out of the four L-type network that we have seen, we are going to design this network which is going to have a series L followed by a shunt C in between the source impedance and the load impedance. What is the value of source impedance given? So Zs is given as 100 ohms. And what is Zl? Zl is given as 1000 ohms. And all this matching has to be done at a frequency f, which is represented or which is given as 100 megahertz. Let us see how to find the values of L and C. So already I have given you the formulas. So the formula here used is Qs is equal to Qp is equal to 1000 divided by 100, that is RL divided by Rs minus 1, which is giving you a quality factor equal to 3. Once you find the quality factor, from the quality factor you can find what is the reactance, series reactance and the shunt reactance. So formula for series reactance Xs is Qs into Rs. So we have calculated Qs as 3 and Rs as 100. So which is giving you reactance, series reactance 300 ohms. In the series, what is the element we used? Inductor. So it is represented as inductive reactance. So next is parallel shunt element. So XP, formula for XP is equal to RP by QP. RP is given as 1000 and QP we have evaluated as 3, which is giving the answer as 333 ohms. So since it is a shunt element, in the network we saw that we are having a capacitance at the shunt element. So it is represented as capacitive reactance. So once we find the value of the inductive reactance and the capacitive reactance, easily we can find the value of L and C corresponding to these reactances. So this is the formula for calculating the inductance L from the reactance value, from the inductive reactance. So if XS is the inductive reactance, then L value, inductance L is given by XS by omega. So how will you find the value of omega? Omega is equal to 2 pi F. F is 100 megahertz. So substituting the value, we are getting the L as 477 nanohenry. Similarly, if you know what is the capacitive reactance XP, you can easily calculate the capacitance value. The formula is C is equal to 1 by omega XP. C is equal to 1 by omega XP. Again substituting for omega as 2 pi F, we get the expression for the capacitor as 4.8 picofarad. So this will be our final circuit where the 100 ohms source is matched to a 1000 ohms load by 477 nanohenry series inductor followed by a 4.8 picofarad shunt capacitor. So in real world we will be dealing with only complex loads. In previous example we saw that ZS as well as RL both were a resistive component, where we can represent that as RS and RL. But in real world, the input and output impedances will not be resistive in nature. For example, whenever you use a transmission line, mixers, antennas, transistors and all other sources, and most of the other sources is going to have, or it is going to provide an input or an output impedance in the form of R plus or minus JX, which is complex. So this is the second category of impedance matching network that is available, which is 3-element network. So in 2-element network we saw that L and C was the 2 element which was used between the transmitter and the receiver, and in 3-element, 3 elements will be used between the source and the load. So this is our impedance matching network, which is having 3 elements, X1, X2, X3. Since it is X, this X can be either an inductive reactance or capacitive reactance. So you can use, again this will form 3 or 4 categories of network. So X1 can be a capacitance, X2 can be an inductance. So in any combination you can use, but instead of 2 elements we will be using 3 elements. So the first category of the 3 element, it is called as pi network. So why it is called as pi network? It is looking like pi. So first element is connected in shunt, followed by a series element, followed by a shunt element. So this is looking like a pi. So this 3-element network is called as pi network, where X1, X2, X3 can be either an inductor or a capacitor. Now this is the second network, which is called as T network. This is again containing 3 elements. The first element X1, instead of being connected in shunt, it is connected in series. The second element is connected in parallel, and third element is again connected in series. So this is forming a T-type structure. So it is called as T network. Again, as I told you, X1, X2 and X3 can be an inductive reactance or a capacitive reactance. So these are the 2 major classifications of matching networks that are available to match the source and the load for maximum power transfer between them. So we will see the effect of the series resistance and the load resistance on Q. I told you Q is quality factor. So consider this diagram where we have a source and we have a series resistance followed by a capacitive parallel element and a inductive parallel element represented by XC and XL. So let us see what happens when the RS value is going to be equal to 50. So when RS is going to be 50, you can see the diagram. As the frequency of operation increases, the attenuation is going to have a broader graph and Q value is going to be 1.1. Instead of 50 ohm series resistance, if you increase the value from 50 to 1000 ohms, you can see the graph is going to be very narrower and the quality factor is going to obviously increase, which is equal to 22.4. So what is the inference? As you increase the source resistance value, the quality factor of the network is going to increase. So next we will see the effect of quality factor versus the parallel reactance. We had two elements in parallel, isn't it? One is inductor, the other one is capacitor. So for a constant frequency of 142.35 megahertz for the given two networks, let us see what will happen. For the first case is larger inductor value and smaller capacitor, that is inductor value is 50 nanohenry and capacitor is 25 picofarad. Under this condition, what is the value of Q we are getting? The quality factor Q is equal to 1.1. So how can you increase the quality factor? So if you decrease the inductor value and increase the capacitance value, you can have a better quality factor. That is, for our case, when the inductor is going to have a value of 2.5 nanohenry and capacitor is having a value of 500 picofarad, we are achieving a quality factor of 22.4. So this is the effect of Q versus the parallel reactance. So in parallel reactance, we always prefer smaller inductor and larger capacitor. In case of resistance, as the source value of the resistance increases, we saw that the quality factor is increasing. I hope this video would have given you a clear idea of what is impedance matching. We will see the remaining topics in the next class. Thank you.